All right, everybody. Welcome to how AI startups are going to impact the enterprise. We have a fantastic panel. We have 30 minutes. Hope to be pretty jam-packed. So I'll kind of get started here and introduce this panel. It's actually a very nice kind of spectrum of experience up here. So starting on your left here is Jeffrey, who is a partner at a brand new venture firm, Premutation Ventures. I'll kind of come back so you can do a little introduction of your company kind of as we go into the questions since it's limited time. And then we have Chris with Skymind.io, which is a kind of a core tech ML and deep learning platform that works with a lot of kind of Fortune 2000 companies. And then we have Sarah, who has started a very kind of progressive travel agency that uses AI in the core product. So an actual company that didn't start with AI, but it's actually embraced AI in terms of the products and services they offer. I think much like the situation that a lot of the people that are attending this conference are in. And then last but not least, we have Tim from MineMelt, who has a productized solution for conversational AI, which we'll get into here shortly. So I'd like to actually kind of open it up with Sarah talking about Seamless Planet. So maybe could you just give us a quick 30 seconds about Seamless Planet?
Hello, everybody. I worked on Seamless Planet for 2 years, so we are still in a startup. We are working on AI booking engine for travel activities, similar to a virtual assistant that you can ask any question from through different messaging platform. We are on Facebook Messenger, Slack, Telegram, and other messaging platforms. So we have worked on it for 2 years, and I can help you with any question that you have related to chatbots.
Great. So when I think about Seamless Planet, I think it's like a virtual concierge as I'm on the actual trip. Hey, where do I go to eat? Can you book this and book this? And this is something that I can just do over Messenger, and it kind of fulfills that workflow. And so one of the things that, as we were just talking, I think is very interesting is that you didn't start the company as kind of this AI-first mentality, but instead you wanted to be a very kind of progressive travel agency that just got a really great database of the world and great things to visit, and then you added AI in for this conversational piece as you were kind of building the company. And I think that may be similar to a lot of folks in the audience that are already in a company or a business that's in full scale and wondering, how do we bring this kind of technology into our products or services in flight? And I wonder if you could just speak about the challenges and kind of how that process worked in rolling out AI into your business.
Sure. When we started, we thought about AI for our recommendation engine, like a traditional way of sending the things that you want to see, like travel-related stuff that you want to see, and book it through our app. But then after 6 months of market research and looking at consumer behaviors, we realized that most of the travel companies have problem with answering questions that people have while they book different travel activities. And that's extremely it's a lot of cost for them because it's they have a lot of people working on call centers to answer all the questions that people have. So we thought about how we can use AI to answer all the questions that people have to book different travel activities.
Great.
As you ask, like what is the challenge that we had? As you may know, it's extremely hard to understand the questions that people ask as a robot, like how AI can understand the question and answer it. And that was the biggest challenge that we had.
Can we speak, actually, given kind of how startups in the AI space are going to affect the enterprise, you, as a small company, as a startup, are almost more of a disruptor as far as the travel agency, the industry is. Do you think this is working to your advantage, given kind of the technical hurdles of implementing this, given kind of your small size? In other words, do you feel like you're going to have kind of this unfair advantage coming in as your company grows because of embracing AI so early?
Yes, definitely. But the thing is, as a small company, you don't have a lot of data. And when it comes to AI, you need a lot of data. And that's why we started working with big companies such as TripAdvisor, Amadeus, and all these big companies that have years of data, 20, 30 years of data. And that's the key point. If you don't have a lot of data, you cannot really use the AI to understand a question and also answer those questions.
That's great. Okay, so moving on to Tim. It looks like we've got to share microphones here. So Tim, MineMelt. I thought this was interesting because Seamless Planet has built this conversational AI piece kind of into their product as a travel agency, but this is kind of your MineMelt's forte. Maybe you could speak a little bit about the technology and the company, and then how, if anyone else in the audience is thinking about bringing conversational AI into their service department or whatever, how they might work with a company like MineMelt.
Yeah, thank you. As Adam mentioned, our company, MineMelt, provides a technology platform that we call a deep domain conversational AI platform. It allows our customers to create very advanced voice and text messaging-based assistants, kind of like the ones that you might be familiar with, Amazon Echo or Siri, or some of these new Facebook Messenger chatbots. Our customers do things like create applications that allow you to place an order, takeout order using your voice as you're driving home in your car, using an intelligent voice assistant built into your car, or book a hotel reservation on your smartphone using voice as you're walking down the street, or browse and buy products using your smart TV while you're sitting on the couch. These are the types of applications that are coming to market. To support them, our customers need to have these conversational assistants that have deep understanding of their product catalogs, of their online menus, of the array of choices that might be available in their offering. And to do that, you need some of the most advanced AI technology, specifically conversational AI technologies available today, and we help our customers deploy those applications, which you're going to see coming to market. So the way that, you asked about how to deploy these, but why don't we save that till later?
One thing I'd like to do, just to get a sense, since I know Dreamforce has got a kind of an eclectic mix of a lot of folks here when you're the Startup Valley and things. How many people are in the audience representing an enterprise company? Just quick show of hands. Okay, so maybe about 2/3. And how many folks are at like a small to medium-sized business or a startup? Could you show of hands? Okay, so maybe 20% or so. And of the folks that are that raise their hands or just in the enterprise, how many people are thinking about introducing or trying to figure out how to bring AI in to their products or services within like the next, let's say, 24 months? Okay, so that's about half. So this is kind of the audience that you're thinking about. One thing that I imagine is on your mind is, this is kind of this very abstract world and artificial intelligence. How do we make this more concrete? Maybe you could speak about what the initial engagement looks like, timing, maybe the sense of expected, if you're willing to discuss cost, and then also the way that you measure kind of success or ROI within a short time frame.
Sure. What we've learned deploying applications for our customers over the past 3 years is that the only way to truly evaluate whether an AI system will positively impact your business is to build almost a complete application on full sets of data that reflect your use case. It's very hard to evaluate the impact of AI on your enterprise if you build a small demo or a very narrow proof of concept, because none of those work. They aren't. Every user will think they're terrible. So unfortunately, this is a new territory. It doesn't work like enterprise software. It doesn't work like internet software. You really need to build out an almost complete implementation on a very full data set in order to evaluate it. And that generally means at least a 2 to 4 month commitment of time and resources in order to get to that proof of concept. And only then will you really be able to make a decision about whether or not it'll work. And that's not necessarily good news for a lot of companies, because they don't want to take that biggest step when they're just getting started. I have even more bad news. When you actually get to the point where you have a working proof of concept and it shows potential, the ROI that you will get from that application can't be measured in days or months, but generally the way these systems work is they learn from increasing user traffic over a period of months to years, and it really is only after you've invested for 2 years or more that this will become transformative to your business. That is a hard pill for a lot of enterprises to swallow, but I guarantee you, 5 years from now, we will look back, there will be winners and losers, and the winners will be the ones that took the step now. That is our view on it.
So you think this is I guess, a pivotal moment in terms of, like, there's this chasm, and in 5 years from now, that's going to be a big thing, whether you switch on that, and it's a longer-term investment, is what you're saying. Okay. Kind of, I guess, on that level of the sense of it, kind of embracing AI at kind of a fundamental level in the way that you build products and services. Kind of want to go to you, Chris. Talk a little bit about MineMelt or Skymind, I'm sorry, and talk about the kinds of products and the services that Skymind provides.
Sure, Adam. So I'll briefly introduce Skymind, and I think it would be useful just to talk about how you might think about bringing AI to your enterprise, no matter which tool you choose. So Skymind is Cloudera for deep learning, right? We're open source AI, a bunch of Apache 2.0 libraries, and we support an open source distro. It's called the Skymind Intelligence Layer. That includes deep learning for J, the world's most widely used deep learning library for the JVM, Java, Scala, languages a lot of you use. So let's talk for a second about what it means to bring AI to your enterprise, right? So first of all, let's define AI. AI is just math and code that takes in data and produces decisions, right? So the two things you need to implement a deep learning or an AI solution are knowing which decisions you care about and then finding the data that correlates to those decisions, right? If you know those two things, you've got a great start. If you don't know them yet, those are the first problems to solve, and they're not impossible to solve, right? So, concrete example, you want to build a spam filter. The decisions you care about are spam or not spam, right? The data that correlates to that are emails that are spam or not spam, and maybe you have them labeled, right? And then you can train an algorithm, and it can see those emails, and it'll spit out a decision. It's a decision-making layer about whether that email represents spam or not, and that can be applied to fraud detection. It can be applied to facial recognition, right? And we're achieving. So I admire the work these guys are doing. Natural language processing can be a tough problem to solve. AI in certain fields is already achieving superhuman performance, right? We're achieving 95, 96% accuracy on image recognition, right? It recognizes my friends on the sidewalk better than me, right? Which means that your businesses have a new choice to make about what tools you want to use to achieve the best results, right? And maybe AI can give them to you.
Could you speak a little bit about, as concrete as possible, what an engagement with Skymind might look like when it starts?
I didn't answer your question. Yeah, sure.
And it's fine, I mean, because it's such a large concept, and I mean, we're talking about a chasm that's going to transcend. If you believe that, it's a really big deal, and there's a lot of complexity, which is fine. But I look at you guys as being kind of almost like a Sherpa, to use kind of the trailhead metaphor here, to help, kind of a guide along that path. Can you help us understand, or anybody that's thinking of investing, how they would engage with kind of the Cloudera of AI?
Sure. I can talk you through the decision tree. So what does Cloudera do? What does Red Hat do? Right? Many of you have probably worked with those businesses. So they offer support, training, and services around an open source package. Red Hat offers RHEL, Cloudera offers CDH. We offer the Skymind Intelligence Layer skill. Right? So support just means that if you have a mission critical app that you've built, a deep learning solution that's touching your customers, we'll back you up. There's a phone number to call, right? And we're unique in that sense. There are many deep learning tools. None of them are commercially supported except ours. So the second is training, right? That we're going through a shift from previous AI solutions, previous machine learning solutions, towards deep learning, which is achieving these spectacular results. And we teach people how to achieve those results. So training is part of it. And then finally, services. If you don't have a team that has time to build a deep learning solution, we'll do it for you, right? That's called a proof of concept or a pilot. But to take one step back, I think it's interesting. What you have up here are different people offering different kinds of solutions. So on the market, there are full-fledged solutions already. It may make sense for you to go with a full-fledged solution if that meets your needs. And if your needs as an enterprise are more specific or more particular, then you might need to think about building it yourselves or finding a vendor who can help you build it, right? That's the decision tree.
Okay. So kind of going back to the theme about how AI startups are going to impact enterprise, just to kind of recap here, we have a startup that's going to hopefully disrupt other kind of incumbents because you're embracing AI and you're very nimble and growing. And you've got two other startups here that are actually designing products and services to help you augment yourself kind of on the other side of that if you're in the enterprise, about moving quickly in terms of embracing AI. And then Jeff, Jeffrey, I'd like to ask you, because you're kind of in a different world. You're in the investment world, and Premutation Ventures is a new venture company. And I know that you mentioned that you're raising your first fund now, so congratulations on that. I wanted to just ask you about, really what we're saying is the kind of target company you might invest may be these kinds of companies in the future. And as far as thinking about startups impacting the enterprise, I think thinking about where venture money is going is kind of an early precursor to what you might see in a few years. So maybe you could just speak about kind of your investment thesis and how you think about AI moving into the future as far as from an investor's perspective.
Okay, so so I'll explain a little bit about Premutation Ventures.
I think you need to move the mic. It's a little loud.
So I'll explain a little bit about Premutation Ventures. So we're an early stage VC fund focused on seed and Series A, and we're focused on AI that will have, big impact in the world. So whether that sort of affects enterprise or affects infrastructure or, anything you can think of. And so the thing that one of the things that we realize is that one of the big things that makes a lot of these AI systems really defensible and is a big area for enterprise is data. So one of the most valuable things that we can do as sort of a VC firm is actually partnering with big enterprises, because then we can basically give them startups so that they, these startups can come in, get a novel data set that like nobody else has, do a lot of good work with it. It gives the startup an immediate sort of marketplace, and then it gives the big enterprise access to cutting edge technology that nobody else has access to.
Great. So we're a little over halfway through. I want to now we've kind of done a little bit of introduction on everybody here and their company of service. Want to get a little bit deeper in terms of tactics that you guys can kind of take away from this conference as far as how to think about AI. Can you kind of get a show of hands? How many people have a team of data scientists employed directly within their company today? Okay, so maybe about 20%. And how many are thinking about investing more in data scientists or machine learning or AI as far as a skill set that you want to bring in-house? Okay, so collectively, maybe about half of you. How many of you are contracting out or thinking about buying products or services, such as some of the, a couple of the startups up here are offering as your strategy as opposed to bringing people in-house? Okay. And how many of you raised your hands multiple times? I've been asking questions. Okay, so you're doing everything. That's great. Okay. So look, there's a lot of options. If you think this is really going to be this chasm that people are going to be moving over in the next 5 years, it's a really important strategy to start defining. And I kind of want to ask you, what is the most important thing that you would recommend if you think about these companies building up teams of data scientists or thinking about partnering with people externally? I understand that there's some, you may be a little biased on that question, but if you really to try to put yourself in their shoes and think about this, transformation that's happening, can you contrast some of those strategies here for them?
I think Tim already mentioned that ROI is not going to be fast. So that's a really important thing to mention and think about, because you are not going to see the ROI in 6 months or 1 year. But if you don't do it as soon as you can, then your competitors, they're going to do the same thing and they're going to be ahead of you. So that's the thing that you have to mention, because we work with some of the big companies and they always ask me, "Oh, when are we going to see the ROI?" I'm like, "No, you're not going to see it soon. This is a very lengthy process. Understanding the questions and answering those questions is not an easy problem to solve, and it requires a lot of machine learning, and it takes months and years. So that's really important to consider."
My one piece of advice would be, I think there's a great deal of misinformation about what AI can do and how it can help the enterprise. And so I think trying to cut through that before you make a lot of decisions is key. And a couple of the piece of misinformation is a lot of people think that there's an abundance of open source tools and, for example, self-service tools to do things like image analysis or language analysis. And they think that applying them is just like buying a piece of desktop software and running it. That's not the way any of the systems today work. Generally, the tools that are available require a great deal of expertise and a very large amount of data before they do anything useful. And therefore, there's this commitment of being able to get the data and either work with experts or hire experts to use it, and that is no small undertaking. So I think organizations should internalize that and understand that before they make decisions on a particular strategy.
Is just thinking about any of the companies that maybe they haven't fully invested in bringing in AI products and services, or working with contractors, or even hiring data scientists, but I think everybody, at some level has data. Has data from their customers, and is kind of amassing this. Can you speak, because this is a big theme, I've heard multiple of you say, you really need a lot of data to do great machine learning, which I also agree with. But thinking about anybody is there anything people should be doing today that's different about the way they're collecting data to prepare themselves for the future?
Well, so one thing that I would kind of disagree with everyone here is you don't need all of the data in the world to do something useful. You can sort of start small and do it incrementally. So like there are, easy to run models that work with, low amounts of data, right? This is what statistics was doing as early as like the 1940s. And you can sort of build it out, right? You can start to get rudimentary data and get rudimentary models, get more data, get more sophisticated models, and then just continue and, reap all the benefits.
So thinking about kind of the conversational AI and the kind of, if anybody has, for example, a support or a service kind of offering, and you have questions or even a knowledge base that people are coming in, what should a company do if they have a product like that already out in terms of preparing themselves to do things with ML and conversational AI?
Adam, can I just step it back to your last question?
Sure.
I'd like to add a couple comments.
You guys can interrupt anytime.
Okay.
You just got to share your mics.
Okay. So data science and production are two different worlds. So we really have a workflow problem. Most of the data scientists you will hire are specialists in languages like Python and R.
Yep.
And those languages don't always deploy well, right? But they're great for data exploration. So you can optimize for that data exploration stage by hiring data scientists. However, the solutions they build may run into problems when you take them to production, right? So there's actually a whole cast of characters you need to think about hiring. There are data engineers and data architects, right? They will be the ones to figure out what kind of data you should be collecting, how it should be mined, moved, and stored in tools like Hadoop or an Oracle database or whatever you choose. And then there will be people who will work on top of that to process it, right? Now, I think that the future of AI, if AI is going to be really widespread, will be in what we call pre-trained models, right? Where the work of the data scientists has already largely been done. And what you're going to do is plug in a component for certain problems. Obviously, for particular and idiosyncratic problems, you'll still need a data science team to do some exploration. But certain AI companies will be providing models that do a lot of the work for you.
So just to kind of play off that, and it deals with the data question about how much you need, because if it's a pre-trained model, it's almost saying it's a global model. It's built off data from other people. So could we just take a second to talk about, I know that a lot of enterprises also think about data privacy, and they think about this kind of global model, and is that a competitive disadvantage of participating in something like that? Can you, and anybody feel free to answer this, speak about what you think the future looks like as far as pre-trained models and either the want to participate or the reluctance to participate, and what that means specifically from maybe a startup and a disruptive standpoint. But maybe think about that in the future. Could you speak to that?
Sarah? I think you have things to say.
Yeah, sure. So in my opinion, in the near future, everybody needs to have a strategy for conversational commerce. So if you don't have that, you cannot communicate with your customers, right? Especially the new generation, they don't like to call centers and ask questions. So from the conversational commerce point of view, you definitely need to have that capability to do that, to understand the questions and answer it. But as I mentioned, like for us, because we were in the booking engine data, we really needed a lot of data. So, I mean, it depends on your business. But for us, because in order to understand the question very well and answer it, then you need to get all those data. And in the travel industry, like, there are a lot of big companies that they have that data. So the only way for us was working with big companies to to have that and get it from them and then work on that.
Do you think, maybe we could speak a little bit about MineMelt here, and just how long does it take to kind of set up that initial corpus or ontology or schema or whatever it is with kind of some of the conversational AI, the decision tree, if you will?
Yeah, I can speak to that and also talk about how you can leverage pre-trained models. Okay. So many customers hope that they don't have to train their own models. They might be able to leverage the work that other companies or academia does. And generally that approach only works if the problem you're trying to solve is a general purpose domain or a consumer domain problem. So the places where pre-trained models work really well are for things like general purpose image recognition or image analysis. They work for speech recognition. They work for, to some extent, machine translation. And one of the ways that you could determine whether a pre-trained model will work for your application or not is if you think you get 1,000 people in a room and you ask them the same question, if they're all going to come back with the exact same answer without any interpretation or subtlety, then that might be a candidate for a pre-trained model. But for most of the problems that our customers and most enterprises want to solve, pre-trained models will not work. Generally, they want an application that gives extremely accurate answers around the types of questions that their customers uniquely ask. Those could be customer support questions. Those could be questions about availability of products in a product catalog. Those could be questions to book an airline reservation, or there could be trying to order food at a local restaurant. In those situations, pre-trained models do not work, and there is today no technology that will make it possible to build a really good system without actually training it on your own data and your own questions. And that generally takes a couple of months at minimum, I would say.
Okay. Chris?
Adam, can I speak to the question of global models? So I think the question everyone here needs to ask themselves is data a limiting parameter for me, right? Do I face data constraints? If so, do I need to build a data set? For many enterprises, data is not a limiting parameter. If anything, you have too much data, right? But if you do face that limit, then you need to start thinking about relying on a global model, maybe provided by another company, I think, as Sarah mentioned. So companies like Google are crowdsourcing. I almost said cloud sourcing. They're crowdsourcing their data when people do searches and upload photos and that sort of thing. Salesforce is in a position to crowdsource a lot of data with all the customers working on your cloud. When you start doing that, though, you run into privacy issues and security issues. Those are addressable, right? But it should be very clear how they're being addressed, right? If you're an enterprise and you have enough data, then security might not be such a concern for you because the AI solution can just go on-prem, right? Within the walls you've already built. Yeah.
Great. So one thing I'd like to do, could you just quick show of hands again if you are thinking about implementing AI in the next 24 months? I asked that question before. I'd just love to get folks. Okay, so any one of you, there are quite a few of you, is anyone willing to kind of share very briefly what your company does and kind of ask the panel, just as a quick advisory, going to put you on the spot a little bit, about maybe tactical advice for them to be thinking about how to incorporate that. Is anybody willing to kind of share? We've got 2 minutes left only, so it's going to be brief. No takers? Okay, is anybody thinking about doing stuff in service? Yes, okay. Didn't really think through the microphone strategy here, but you're thinking about doing something in service? Yeah, I can run it. Doing it live. Wanted to make this.
Hi there. My name is Pete from Corp. We're a labor solutions company, and one of the biggest problems is effectively matching candidates against job specs. So the AI solution we're looking to sort of implement is much smarter matching of candidates. I mean, recruiters, people do it. They match candidates to job specs. They have roughly a 1 in 6 hit rate. Anything better than that would obviously be a huge competitive advantage for us.
Is either of you? Yeah.
So what's the question?
How do you increase the efficiency of matching candidates to job specs?
How do you do it?
So two questions around that. One, how do you generate data? So how would you generate more data to make it a richer matching model? The second is, what type of algorithms would you look at to implement a matching model? And then the third question for me in particular is, AI is sort of the buzzword that's out there at the moment. Everyone's talking about AI. Every company says they're AI enabled. Every partner says they have an AI solution. How do you sort of separate the wheat from the chaff? Because as Tim said, right, actually you need a really specific skill set and some pretty potent tools if you want to achieve proper AI outcomes. And sort of how do you evaluate, or how would you rank companies in terms of their ability to really deliver a true AI solution?
Yeah, I can
Chris?
take a whack at that. The first thing to understand is that AI, machine learning, and deep learning are a set of Russian dolls, right? Where AI is the biggest doll, right? Machine learning is a subset of AI, and deep learning is an advanced subset of machine learning, right? So that's the way to think about those things in your mind, broad strokes. Once you dig down deeper, the question to ask your vendors or your partners is, what algorithms are you using, right? Some startups won't want to tell you, right? But it will help you a lot if they do tell you what kind they're using, so you know what doll they fit in, right? To start out. Secondly, to get to your question, you're talking about basically a recommendation system for job candidates and employers, right? And the kind of data will be some self-reported in terms of the resume, and a bunch of metadata that can be gathered online and paid for from LexisNexis or other sources, where you build a profile of each job candidate and of each employer, right? You analyze the similarities between candidates and the similarities between companies, right? And then the best situation is where you have a feedback loop with a particular employer who tells you this kind of candidate did well in this role, right? So you can get into a virtuous cycle where they're giving you the best information about who you should feed to them.
Great. Just real fast, I know we're out of time. Could we do like the 20-second advice? If there was just one thing you could say briefly about giving anybody advice or thinking about this big transformation in the future, could we kind of go down that? Jeffrey, you mind starting?
I would just recommend picking sort of the lowest hanging fruit. If you're not getting data, start getting data. If you don't have any data scientists, get some data scientists. If you have data scientists, invest more, et cetera, et cetera.
Invest in data scientists, log your data.
Okay, scope your problem to know what decisions you care about. Make sure you've got the data that correlates with those decisions, and avoid magical thinking.
If you don't have a conversational commerce strategy, start tomorrow working on that.
You're coming for them. Got it.
I would say don't underestimate the importance of this decision for your enterprise, and don't underestimate the complexity of this decision. It is extremely hard to get right. You won't see returns immediately, but if you do not start investing, for many businesses, it will be the source of your success or your failure years to come.
Great. Okay. Could I get a quick round of applause for our fantastic panel? Thank you guys for coming. Very educational. I'm presuming you're going to be able to stick around a little bit for questions as well. And thank you all for attending, and have a fantastic Dreamforce. Thank you.